The stars looked different when you were this far from home. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Horizon, watching the endless black space through the main viewing screen. 3 years of travel had brought them farther than any human had ever gone. The ship hummed quietly around him as his crew worked at their stations. "Captain, we're getting something strange on the long-range sensors," said Lisa Grant from her science station. Her fingers moved quickly across the control panel. "It's big. Really big." Jake walked over to look at her screen. The readings showed a massive object ahead of them. It was clearly artificial, too organized to be natural.
"How big are we talking?"
"About the size of Manhattan, sir. But it's not moving like a ship. It's just sitting there." Commander Ryan Brooks looked up from his tactical station. "Could be a space station. But who built it out here?" Jake felt his heart beat faster. They had been searching for signs of alien life for months. Earth scientists had theories about other civilizations, but this was the first real proof. "Take us closer, but keep our distance." "Lisa, start recording everything." The ship moved forward slowly. As they got closer, the object became clearer on the screen. It was definitely a space station, but unlike anything humans had ever built. Strange curved sections connected to each other in patterns that seemed almost organic. Lights blinked along its surface in colors that shifted from blue to green to purple. "Captain, we're being scanned," Ryan said. His voice was calm, but Jake could hear the tension underneath. "Something is looking at us." "Shields up, but don't charge weapons yet," Jake ordered. "We don't want to seem hostile." Dr. Amy Turner, the ship's doctor and biologist, came onto the bridge. She had been studying alien life possibilities for years. "This is incredible. The construction methods are completely different from ours. Look at those curves. No human engineer would design like that." A new voice suddenly filled the bridge. It spoke perfect English, though with an odd musical quality. "Unknown vessel. This is Federation Station Outpost 7. Please identify yourself and state your purpose in this sector." Jake straightened his uniform and stepped forward. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Earthship UES Horizon. We come in peace, seeking contact with other civilizations." There was a pause. Then the voice returned, sounding surprised. "Earth? We have no record of your species in our databases. Please maintain your current position while we contact the Federation Council." Lisa looked at Jake with wide eyes. "Federation Council? There's a whole government out here?" "Looks like it," Jake replied. He turned to Ryan. "What's our tactical situation?" "The station has weapons, but they're not targeting us. I'm reading at least 6 different energy signatures that could be defensive systems. Their technology is more advanced than ours, but not by as much as I expected." An hour passed before the station contacted them again. This time a new voice spoke, deeper and more formal. "UES Horizon, this is Ambassador Veltar of the Galactic Federation. We would like to invite a small delegation aboard our station for formal first contact procedures." Jake looked around at his crew. This was the moment they had trained for, but it still felt unreal. "We accept your invitation, Ambassador. How many people should we send?" "No more than 5 of your kind, please. We will provide safe transport." Jake chose his team carefully. He would go himself, along with Lisa, Amy, Ryan, and Lieutenant Commander Alex Johnson, their communications officer. As they prepared to leave, Jake gathered his senior staff in the briefing room. "I don't need to tell you how important this is," he said. "We're representing all of humanity today. Stay alert, be respectful, but remember that we're not begging for anything. We're equals meeting equals." The alien transport that came for them was sleek and silent. It docked with their ship so smoothly that they barely felt the connection. When the airlock opened, they found themselves face to face with their first alien. The being was tall and thin, with gray-green skin and large, dark eyes. It wore robes that seemed to shimmer with their own light. When it spoke, its mouth barely moved, but the words were clear. "Welcome, humans. I am Veltar. Please follow me." The inside of the station was as strange as the outside. The corridors curved in impossible ways, and the lighting seemed to come from the walls themselves. They passed other aliens, some that looked like giant insects, others that seemed to be made of living water. "How many species are in your federation?" Amy asked. "Currently, we have representatives from 47 different worlds," Veltar replied. "Most joined us peacefully after we made contact with them. The Federation exists to promote peace and cooperation throughout the galaxy." They entered a large room with a curved ceiling that showed the stars outside. Other aliens waited there, each one different from the others. Feltar gestured for the humans to sit in chairs that adjusted themselves automatically. "We must apologize for not knowing about your species sooner," Feltar said. "Your world is quite far from the main Federation space routes. How long have your people had space travel?" "We've been traveling between planets in our solar system for about 200 years, Jake answered. "This is our first ship capable of traveling to other star systems." Several of the aliens made sounds that might have been surprise. One that looked like a large cat with blue fur leaned forward. "Only 200 years? Most species develop space travel over thousands of years. Humans seem to develop technology very quickly," Lisa said. "We went from first flight to landing on our moon in less than 70 years. The aliens exchanged glances. Veltar made a note on a device that appeared in his hands. "Remarkable. Tell us, what is your world like? Is it peaceful?" Amy and Jake looked at each other. This was a complicated question. "We have had wars," Jake said carefully. "But we're working toward peace. We've had no major conflicts for over 50 years now." "Wars?" The cat-like alien looked confused. "What are wars?" Ryan spoke up for the first time. "Armed conflicts between different groups of our people. Large-scale fighting." The room became very quiet. The aliens stared at the humans with expressions that were hard to read. Finally, Veltar spoke again. "Your species fights among itself? This is unusual. Most civilized species outgrow such behavior before they develop space travel." "We've mostly outgrown it," Jake said quickly. "Earth is united now. We explore space together as one people." "I see." Veltar made more notes. "This explains much about your rapid technological development. Species that experience conflict often advance faster, though they rarely survive long enough to reach the stars." The meeting continued for several hours. The aliens asked many questions about human culture, technology, and history. Jake noticed that they seemed most interested in human military capabilities, though they asked about it indirectly. "We would like to offer your species membership in the Federation," Veltar finally said. "As a young civilization, you would be granted protected status. This means Federation forces would defend your world from any external threats." "What would we need to do in return?" Alex asked. "Follow Federation law, contribute what you can to scientific advancement, and maintain peaceful relations with all member species. It's quite simple, really." Jake felt something was wrong about the offer, though he couldn't put his finger on it. "We appreciate the offer, Ambassador. We'll need to discuss it with our government on Earth. Of course, take all the time you need. Few species refuse Federation protection once they understand the benefits." As they prepared to leave, Amy asked one more question. "Ambassador, in all your experience with different species, have you ever encountered others like humans? Species that had wars before joining the Federation?" Veltar was quiet for a long moment. "No, Dr. Turner, your species is unique in our experience. Most civilizations are peaceful by nature. Conflict is rarely seen among intelligent species." On the transport back to their ship, the human delegation was quiet. Finally, Ryan spoke what they were all thinking. "They think we're primitive because we've had wars. But they also seem afraid of something. Did you notice how interested they were in our military technology? They kept asking about our weapons and defense systems," Alex agreed. "For a peaceful Federation, they sure want to know a lot about fighting." Jake stared out at the alien station as they flew away from it. Something told him that humanity's introduction to galactic civilization was going to be more complicated than anyone expected. The Federation seemed peaceful enough, but in his experience, when someone offered protection without being asked, it usually meant there was something dangerous they weren't talking about. "Set course back to Earth," he ordered once they were aboard the Horizon. "We need to report this to Command. And Ryan, I want a full analysis of everything we observed about their technology and defenses." "Expecting trouble, sir?" Jake watched the station disappear behind them. "I'm hoping for the best, but I think Earth needs to know exactly what we're dealing with out here. Something tells me the galaxy isn't as peaceful as they want us to believe." 6 months had passed since the first meeting with the Federation. Earth had accepted membership, though many government leaders shared Captain Morrison's concerns. The Federation had been welcoming, offering technology exchanges and cultural programs. Everything seemed peaceful until the emergency. Broadcast reached Federation Space. General. Marcus Cole stood in the war room of the Federation military headquarters on Nexus Prime. The massive display screen showed star charts with red warning symbols spreading across several sectors. Admiral Kethvar, a tall reptilian being with golden scales, pointed to the advancing markers with obvious worry. The Vorthak Empire has broken the ceasefire treaty, Kethvar explained to the assembled military leaders. They've attacked 3 border systems simultaneously. Our intelligence suggests this is a full-scale invasion, not a limited territorial dispute. Marcus studied the tactical display. As Earth's senior military representative to the Federation, he had spent months learning about galactic politics. The Vorthak Empire was described as an aggressive civilization that controlled territory on the galaxy's outer rim. For centuries, they had been contained by Federation diplomatic pressure and defensive treaties. What's their objective? Marcus asked. Unknown at this time, replied General Zixtal, a insectoid Cathara with multiple arms. Previous Vorthak conflicts were about specific resource disputes or border adjustments. This attack pattern suggests something much larger. Lieutenant Colonel Beth Harper, who commanded the small human military detachment assigned to Federation forces, reviewed the incoming reports. The human contingent was tiny compared to Federation armies, just 500 soldiers and 3 escort ships. Earth had sent them more as a gesture of cooperation than as a serious military contribution. Sir, the casualty reports from the border systems are coming in, Beth said. Her face was grim as she read from her tablet. Civilian populations targeted, chemical weapons used, no quarter given to surrendering forces. This isn't typical Federation-style warfare. Marcus felt a chill. On Earth, such tactics were considered war crimes, but he had learned that most galactic species fought very differently than humans. Federation conflicts were highly regulated affairs with strict rules about civilian protection and humane treatment of prisoners. How are our forces responding? Marcus asked. Admiral Kethvar activated another display showing Federation fleet positions. Standard defensive protocol. We're evacuating civilian populations and establishing defensive lines at strategic choke points. Diplomatic channels remain open for negotiation. Captain Nick Davis, commanding the human destroyer UES Vengeance, spoke from his position at the communications panel. Admiral, my ship is assigned to 7th Fleet. When do we engage the enemy? Engagement will follow proper procedures. Captain Davis, we will broadcast our intentions, offer terms for withdrawal, and only engage if the Vorthak refuse to negotiate. Marcus and the other humans exchanged glances. In human military doctrine, such procedures would give the enemy every advantage. But Federation warfare had evolved over thousands of years of conflicts between civilized species who shared common values about minimizing destruction. The first major battle occurred 3 days later at the industrial world of Kepler 442b. Beth Harper was aboard the Federation flagship as an observer when the combined fleet met Vorthak forces. She watched from the bridge as the Federation admiral followed standard protocol. Attention Vorthak vessels. The admiral broadcast on open channels. You are in violation of the Nexus Accords. Withdraw immediately or face defensive action. We offer safe passage for your forces to return to recognized Vorthak territory. The Vorthak response was immediate and devastating. Their ships opened fire without warning, targeting the Federation command vessel and the ships carrying evacuated civilians. The battle was swift and brutal. Federation forces, caught off guard by the violation of standard engagement rules, suffered heavy casualties. Beth watched in horror as Vorthak boarding parties executed prisoners and destroyed medical facilities. These weren't the regulated conflicts she had read about in Federation military manuals. This was total warfare. Captain Morrison, she called on her secure communicator. Jake was aboard the UES Horizon, which had been assigned to rear area support duties. You need to see this tactical data. The Vorthak aren't following any rules we recognize. Jake reviewed the battle reports from his ship's bridge. Commander Alex Johnson, now serving as his executive officer, looked over the casualty figures. Sir, at this rate the Federation is going to lose this war. Their tactics assume the enemy shares their values. What would you recommend, Alex? Jake asked. Human doctrine, sir. Hit them hard, hit them fast, and don't give them time to recover. But the Federation would never approve such tactics. General Cole received similar reports from human observers throughout the battle zone. Every engagement followed the same pattern. Federation forces broadcasting intentions, offering negotiation, minimizing collateral damage. Vorthak forces responded with maximum aggression, targeting civilians using banned weapons, and showing no mercy to prisoners. Dr. Amy Turner, now assigned to the Federation Medical Corps, sent disturbing reports about Vorthak weapons. They're using biological agents specifically designed to cause maximum suffering, she transmitted to Earth Command. These aren't weapons meant to win battles quickly. They're designed to terrorize populations. The war continued for weeks with Federation forces in steady retreat. Their military leadership seemed unable to adapt to an enemy that ignored all accepted rules of warfare. System after system fell to Vorthak advance forces. Marcus requested a private meeting with Admiral Kethvar. They met in the Admiral's office, a circular room with walls that showed peaceful ocean scenes from the Admiral's homeworld. "Admiral, with respect, your current strategy isn't working," Marcus said bluntly. "The Vorthak have no intention of following Federation military protocols." Kethvar's golden scales dulled slightly, a sign of stress in his species. "General Cole, the Federation has maintained peace for over 2,000 years using these methods. Warfare without rules leads to barbarism and genocide. But what if your enemy is already barbaric? What if they see your rules as weakness to exploit? Then we must show them the benefits of civilized behavior through our example." Marcus struggled to find the right words. "Admiral, on Earth we have a saying, you can't reason with a rabid dog. Sometimes the only way to stop an aggressor is to use superior force. Your species' violent history is well documented, General. Surely you understand why the Federation prefers peaceful resolution. Our violent history is exactly why we understand what you're facing. The Vorthak aren't interested in peaceful resolution. They want conquest." Captain Davis sent urgent reports to Earth Command after each engagement. His destroyer was fast enough to avoid serious damage, but he watched Federation ships destroyed because they followed predictable tactics. The Vorthak had studied Federation military doctrine and developed counter-strategies for every standard maneuver. Earth Command. "This is UES Vengeance," Nick transmitted during a brief respite between battles. "Request permission to engage using human tactical doctrine. Federation forces are being slaughtered because they're fighting by rules the enemy ignores." The response came directly from Admiral Steve Mitchell at Earth Defense Command. "Permission denied. Maintain cooperation with Federation command structure. Do not act independently." But private communications began flowing between human military personnel scattered throughout Federation forces. Beth Harper, Nick Davis, Marcus Cole, and others started sharing information about Vorthak tactics and weaknesses. They noticed patterns that Federation commanders missed. "The Vorthak are good at conventional assault tactics," Beth reported during a secure conference call, "but they don't adapt well to unexpected moves. When Federation forces have deviated from standard procedure, even by accident, Vorthak units have shown confusion. They've studied Federation doctrine extensively," Nick added, "but they don't know how humans fight." Marcus made a decision that would change everything. He sent a classified report directly to Earth's military leadership, bypassing Federation channels entirely. "The Federation is losing this war because they're fighting the last war, not this one," he wrote. "The Vorthak have spent centuries preparing to face predictable Federation tactics. They're not prepared for human military doctrine. Recommend immediate deployment of Earth's true military capabilities." The response came within days. Admiral Carol Webb would arrive with the first wave of Earth's real fleet, not the token force currently assigned to Federation cooperation, but ships designed for serious warfare. More importantly, Earth was changing the rules of engagement for human forces. "You are authorized to use all necessary means to protect Federation civilians and defeat Vorthak forces," the new orders read. Human military doctrine is now in effect. Beth Harper smiled as she read the message. The Federation was about to learn what humans meant when they said they were a peaceful species. They were peaceful because they knew exactly how to end wars quickly and decisively. The Vorthak Empire was about to face Earth's apex predators, and they had no idea what was coming. On his ship, Captain Morrison looked at the star charts showing Vorthak advances. "Alex, send a message to all human units. Operation Apex Admiral Carol Webb arrived at Federation space with a fleet that made the aliens stop and stare. The UES Retaliation, UES Devastator, and 23 other warships dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation. These weren't the small escort vessels that Earth had previously sent. These were ships built for one purpose: winning wars." Captain Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Horizon as the new fleet approached. He had requested permission to transfer to one of the combat vessels. but Earth Command wanted him to remain as a liaison with Federation forces. His job was to explain what was about to happen. "Federation Command, this is Admiral Webb aboard the UES Retaliation," came the transmission. "Earth forces are now assuming combat operations against Vorthak incursions. Please coordinate your defensive positions with our tactical plan." Admiral HFY's response came through clearly confused. "Admiral Webb, we appreciate the reinforcements, but your ships will need to integrate with our existing command structure. All operations must follow Federation military protocols." There was a pause before Carol's reply. "Admiral HFY, with respect, Federation protocols have resulted in the loss of 6-star systems and millions of civilian casualties. Earth forces will operate under human military doctrine. We suggest your forces provide support and coordinate with our operations." Jake could see the Federation ships around them adjusting their positions nervously. The human fleet was smaller than the Federation forces, but something about the way they moved made it clear these were serious warships. Where Federation vessels were designed for multiple purposes, human ships were built specifically for combat. General Marcus Cole received his new orders aboard the Federation flagship. He was to coordinate ground operations with the incoming human Marines. The first target was the mining world of Kepler-7, where Vorthak forces had established a major base after driving out Federation defenders. "Colonel Harper," Marcus called to his aide, "you're being transferred to direct command of the new human assault forces. Captain Helen Rogers is arriving with the 3rd Marine Expeditionary Unit." Beth felt excitement and nervousness as she prepared to meet the incoming Marines. She had served with Federation forces for months, watching their careful, rule-bound approach to warfare. Now she would see human military doctrine in action for the first time since leaving Earth. Captain Rogers arrived on the next transport, along with 500 Marines who looked nothing like Federation soldiers. Where alien troops carried energy weapons designed to disable rather than kill, human Marines carried projectile weapons, explosives, and equipment designed for maximum effectiveness. Their armor was black and intimidating, built for protection rather than appearance. "Colonel Harper," Helen said as they met in the briefing room, "I've reviewed the tactical situation. The Vorthak have fortified the main mining complex and are using civilian workers as human shields. Federation doctrine says we wait for negotiation and gradual pressure. What do you recommend?" Beth looked at the tactical displays showing Vorthak positions. "Human doctrine says we end this quickly before more civilians die. The Vorthak expect Federation forces to announce their intentions and attack slowly. They're not prepared for surprise assault." "Agreed. We go in at night. Multiple insertion points, coordinated strikes on key positions. The civilians will be safer if we eliminate Vorthak forces quickly, rather than allowing a prolonged siege." Admiral HFY was horrified when he saw the human battle plan. "This is completely unacceptable," he told Marcus. "You're planning to attack without warning, target command personnel specifically, and use explosive weapons in civilian areas. Admiral, those civilian areas are being used as Vorthak military positions," Marcus replied calmly. "The longer we wait, the more civilians die. Human tactical doctrine prioritizes saving lives by ending conflicts quickly. But the rules of engagement clearly state that combat forces must identify themselves, offer terms for surrender, and minimize collateral damage. Those rules work when both sides follow them. The Vorthak have proven they don't. Continuing to follow rules they ignore just gets more people killed." The first human assault began at 0300 local time. Lieutenant Commander Greg Stone led the naval component, bringing human destroyers in close to provide orbital fire support. Federation observers watched in shock as human ships ignored standard engagement distances and moved to point-blank range. "UES Vengeance to ground forces," Nick Davis called from his bridge. "We have target lock on Vorthak command bunker. Ready for precision strike." "Negative," came the Federation controller's voice. "You must broadcast surrender terms before engaging enemy positions." Captain Rogers' voice cut across the communication channel. "This is Ground Commander Rogers. Federation controllers, your procedures have been noted and rejected. Human forces are engaging enemy positions now. The orbital bombardment was brief and precise. Human ships used kinetic projectiles rather than energy weapons, hitting Vorthak positions with devastating accuracy. The aliens had no experience with weapons that moved faster than energy beams and couldn't be deflected by their shield systems. On the ground, Beth led the first assault team through the mining complex. The human soldiers moved differently than Federation troops. Where aliens advanced in formation while broadcasting their positions, humans used stealth, cover, and surprise. They had studied the facility plans and knew exactly where to strike. The Vorthak defenders were completely unprepared. They had positioned themselves to defend against predictable Federation attacks from obvious directions. Human Marines came from unexpected angles, through maintenance tunnels across rooftops and from concealed positions. Contact front, called Sergeant Mike Torres as his squad encountered Vorthak troops. The engagement lasted less than 30 seconds. Human weapons were designed for quick, decisive action, rather than the prolonged firefights that Federation doctrine expected. Within 4 hours, the mining complex was secure. The Vorthak force that had held the position for weeks against Federation assaults was eliminated or captured. Most importantly, the civilian workers were freed with minimal casualties. Dr. Amy Turner arrived with the medical teams to treat rescued civilians. She found Vorthak prisoners under human guard and was surprised by their condition. Where Federation reports described Vorthak soldiers as fearless and aggressive, these prisoners seemed confused and demoralized. The speed of the attack broke their morale. Captain Rogers explained when Amy asked about it. Vorthak tactics depend on prolonged conflicts where they can use their advantages. When faced with rapid, overwhelming force, they don't adapt well. Word of the human victory spread quickly through both Federation and Vorthak communication networks. Federation forces had attempted to retake Kepler-7 3 times over the past month, suffering heavy casualties each time. Human forces had accomplished the mission in a single night with minimal losses. Admiral Kethvar requested an immediate meeting with Admiral Webb. They met aboard the Federation flagship, with Captain Morrison serving as a translator for the cultural differences. Admiral Webb, while we appreciate your success at Kepler-7, your methods raise serious concerns, Kethvar began. The Federation has maintained galactic peace for millennia by ensuring that warfare remains civilized. Carol looked at the tactical displays showing continued Vorthak advances in other sectors. Admiral, how many civilians have died while you've been maintaining civilized warfare? How many more will die if this war continues for months or years? The preservation of civilized values is worth some sacrifice. Without rules, warfare becomes genocide. On Earth, we learned that following rules against an enemy who ignores them isn't noble. It's suicide. The fastest way to save lives is to win decisively. Jake watched the two admirals trying to understand each other. The Federation had evolved military doctrine based on conflicts between civilized species who shared common values. Humans had developed their approach through conflicts with other humans, opponents who used every available advantage. Admiral Kethvar, Jake said carefully, the human approach to warfare comes from necessity, not cruelty. We fight the way we do because it works. The Vorthak understand strength and fear defeat. They don't understand honor or civilized behavior. But if we abandon our principles, how are we different from the Vorthak? Because we're fighting to protect innocent people, not to conquer them. Human soldiers risk their lives to save civilians. Vorthak forces murder civilians for psychological effect. Intent matters. The debate was interrupted by urgent communications from other battle zones. Human forces under Captain Davis and Colonel Harper were achieving similar rapid victories across 3 star systems. Each engagement followed the same pattern. Human forces struck fast, hard, and without warning, achieving objectives that Federation forces had failed to accomplish, despite months of effort. Commander Alex Johnson, monitoring communications intercepts, brought disturbing news to the senior staff meeting. We're picking up Vorthak military communications, he reported. They're calling us the Predator species and the Hunters. Their command structure is starting to fragment. What do you mean? Amy asked. Vorthak military doctrine. The success of human forces created ripple effects throughout the galaxy that no one had expected. Captain Morrison found himself in the strange position of explaining human military psychology to alien species who had never encountered anything like it. The Federation Council had called an emergency session to discuss the human situation. Captain Morrison, said Ambassador Veltar during the closed session, your species' effectiveness in combat has raised questions about human nature that concern many council members. Some are beginning to wonder if Earth should have been granted membership so quickly. Jake looked around the circular chamber at the various alien representatives. Their faces showed emotions he was learning to read: confusion, fear, and something that might have been awe. "What specific concerns do you have, Ambassador?" A new voice spoke from across the room. Council member Jextai, a crystalline being from the Silicate Collective, made harmonious sounds that the translator converted to words. "Your warriors kill with an efficiency that suggests natural predatory behavior. Most species require extensive conditioning to overcome their natural reluctance to take life. Humans have that reluctance too," Jake replied carefully. "Our soldiers don't enjoy killing. They're trained to protect innocent people and end conflicts quickly. The goal is to save lives, not take them. Yet your battle reports show kill ratios that exceed even our historical records of the most aggressive species," added Council member Yathara, whose amphibian features reminded Jake of a giant frog. "How do you explain such effectiveness?" Dr. Amy Turner, who had been invited to provide scientific perspective, stood to address the council. She had spent months studying the psychological differences between humans and other species since the war began. "Council members, the answer lies in evolutionary biology," Amy began. "Humans evolved as persistence hunters on a world where we were both predator and prey. Our ancestors survived by being better at hunting than anything that hunted them." "Impossible," declared General Zixtal. "No intelligent species evolves from apex predators. Cooperation and intelligence develop in response to external threats, not from creating them." "That's true for every species you've encountered before," Amy continued. "But Earth was different. Humans developed intelligence as a hunting tool. We learned to cooperate to become more effective predators, not to hide from them." The chamber fell silent. Admiral Kethvar finally spoke. "Dr. Turner, are you suggesting that humans are naturally designed for warfare? Not warfare specifically, but for competitive survival. Humans instinctively understand tactics, strategy, and the psychology of conflict because those skills kept our ancestors alive for millions of years." Meanwhile, the war continued to turn in humanity's favor. Major Dan Clark led a series of raids behind Vorthak lines that demonstrated human special operations capabilities. His teams moved through enemy territory like ghosts, striking command posts, supply depots, and communication centers. "The Vorthak are losing their ability to coordinate large-scale operations," Dan reported to General Cole. "Every time they try to establish a new command structure, we eliminate it. They're fragmenting into isolated units that can't support each other." Admiral Webb coordinated the liberation of occupied Federation worlds using tactics that horrified and impressed alien observers in equal measure. Human ships would appear without warning, eliminate Vorthak forces with devastating efficiency, and disappear before enemy reinforcements could respond. Captain Rogers led ground operations that rescued thousands of civilians from Vorthak prison camps. Her Marines used night vision, infiltration techniques, and precision weapons to eliminate guards and free prisoners before the enemy could react. The Vorthak are starting to abandon positions when they detect human forces approaching, Helen reported after the liberation of Tau Ceti III. "Word is spreading through their ranks about human capabilities. They're calling us the Death Hunters." Lieutenant Colonel Joe Adams, assigned to psychological operations, documented the impact of human tactics on both sides of the conflict. Federation forces were adapting their methods, learning from human examples. Vorthak forces were increasingly demoralized and fragmented. "Sir, we're seeing unprecedented behavior from Vorthak units," Joe reported to Marcus. 3 separate commanders have requested individual peace negotiations. This has never happened in recorded Vorthak history. The psychological impact extended beyond the immediate war zone. Intelligence reports indicated that other aggressive civilizations at the galaxy's edge were reconsidering their expansion plans. The rapid collapse of Vorthak forces had sent a clear message about human military capabilities. Captain Davis coordinated naval operations that demonstrated human understanding of 3-dimensional space combat. Federation naval doctrine was based on formal engagement patterns that had evolved over centuries. Human tactics used the full environment, approaching from unexpected angles and using gravity wells and asteroid fields as tactical advantages. The Vorthak fleet doctrine assumed opponents would follow Federation engagement protocols. Nick reported after the Battle of Wolf 3R59. "When we attacked from below the galactic plane and used the star's gravity to accelerate our approach, their entire formation collapsed. Dr. Turner continued her research into the psychological differences between humans and other species. Her findings were being shared throughout Federation space, helping alien commanders understand how to work with human forces effectively. Most Federation species evolved from herd animals or solitary creatures that avoided confrontation, she explained to a gathering of alien military leaders. When threatened, their instinct is to flee or submit. Humans evolved from pack hunters. When threatened, our instinct is to eliminate the threat. The implications were staggering. Federation military doctrine was based on the assumption that all intelligent species shared similar psychological responses to conflict. The discovery that humans responded differently challenged fundamental beliefs about the nature of civilization. Admiral HFY found himself in the unprecedented position of requesting human tactical advice. The Federation had never needed to ask a junior member species for military guidance, but the results spoke for themselves. Admiral Webb, "We're planning operations to liberate the core Vorthak systems," HFY said during their strategy meeting. "Our projections suggest the campaign could take several years using conventional approaches." Carol looked at the tactical displays showing Vorthak defensive positions. "Admiral, human doctrine would approach this differently. Instead of systematic liberation, we target the Vorthak home system directly. Cut off the head and the body dies. That's incredibly risky. If the assault fails, Vorthak forces could counterattack throughout Federation space. If the assault succeeds, the war ends immediately. Human analysis suggests Vorthak psychology is highly hierarchical. Eliminate their central command, and their entire empire will collapse." The debate over strategy revealed fundamental differences in how humans and other species approached problems. Federation doctrine emphasized gradual, low-risk approaches that minimized casualties. Human doctrine accepted higher short-term risks to achieve decisive, permanent solutions. Captain Morrison found himself serving as a cultural translator between human and Federation commanders. "Admiral HFY, humans aren't reckless. We calculate risks differently. We'd rather face one dangerous battle than 100 safe ones. But what if you're wrong? What if the Vorthak don't collapse? Then we'll be in the same position we're in now, except we'll have eliminated their strongest defenses." "But sir, we won't be wrong. Human intelligence assessment is based on predator psychology. We understand how hierarchical societies respond to having their leadership destroyed." The Federation Council ultimately approved the human strategy, though many members remained nervous about the approach. The assault on the Vorthak home system would be led by human forces, with Federation fleets providing support and containment. As the combined fleet prepared for the final battle, Jake reflected on how much had changed since first contact. Humanity had entered galactic civilization as a junior partner seeking protection and guidance. Now they were leading the largest military operation in Federation history. "Alex," he said to his executive officer, "do you think we've changed the galaxy permanently?" "Sir, I think we've shown the galaxy what it was missing. All those peaceful civilizations needed protectors, they just didn't know it. Now they do." The final assault would determine not just the outcome of the war, but humanity's place in galactic civilization. The species that had evolved to be Earth's apex predator was about to face its greatest test in the vast hunting ground of space. Admiral Webb gave the order that would launch the final phase of the war. "All ships begin approach to Vorthak Prime. Today we show the galaxy that apex predators protect the innocent by eliminating threats permanently." Peaceful Federation, but as the apex predator that made peace possible for everyone else. 5 years had passed since the fall of the Vorthak Empire, and the galaxy was still adjusting to the new reality. Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of his flagship, the UES Guardian, watching a joint training exercise between human and Federation forces. The sight would have been unimaginable during first contact. Alien ships moving in perfect coordination with human destroyers. "Admiral, we're receiving a priority transmission from Earth Command," reported Captain Alex Johnson. His promotion to Morrison's Chief of Staff had been well earned, after years of bridging the gap between human and alien military. Thinking, Jake walked to the communications center where General Marcus Cole's image appeared on the main screen. The old soldier looked tired but satisfied. His work establishing the Human Military Advisory Corps had transformed Federation defense capabilities across dozens of worlds. "Jake, We've got a situation developing in the Outer Rim territories. Marcus began without preamble. Long-range scouts have detected signs of another aggressive civilization. Early reports suggest they're technologically advanced and potentially hostile. More advanced than the Vorthak? Jake asked. Different type of threat entirely. These are called the hegemony, a collective of machine intelligences that seems to view biological life as inefficient. Our xenobiology teams think they might be artificial intelligences that outlived their creators. Dr. Amy Turner had spent the past 5 years studying the psychological patterns of various alien species. Her work had become essential to Federation diplomacy and military planning. Now she was leading research into this new threat from beyond explored space. Admiral Morrison. Amy's voice came through the communication system. I'm forwarding you the preliminary analysis of hegemony technology. They don't think like any biological intelligence we've encountered. Their approach to warfare is completely logical, without emotion or instinct. Jake reviewed the data files as they arrived. The hegemony used automated fleets, self-repairing systems, and tactical algorithms that adapted constantly to enemy behavior. They had been expanding through uninhabited systems for decades, strip mining worlds for resources and converting them into industrial complexes. What makes them dangerous to biological civilizations? Jake asked. They see organic life as wasteful and chaotic, Amy replied. Intelligence reports suggest they're planning to optimize inhabited systems by removing biological components, meaning all living things. Admiral Carol Webb coordinated the response from her position as head of human fleet operations. The victory over the Vorthak had proven human tactical superiority against biological opponents. But machines presented different challenges. Morrison, I'm dispatching additional forces to your sector, Carol transmitted from Earth. This isn't like fighting the Vorthak. Machines don't have morale to break or leadership to decapitate. We'll need different strategies. Captain Helen Rogers had spent years training mixed-species special operations teams. Her units now included volunteers from 17 different Federation worlds, all trained in human tactical concepts adapted to their unique capabilities. Admiral, my teams have been analyzing hegemony automated systems, Helen reported during the senior staff briefing. They're incredibly efficient but also predictable. They follow logical patterns that can be anticipated and countered. Lieutenant Colonel Beth Harper, now commanding a full division of integrated human and alien forces, brought disturbing news from the border regions. Sir, the hegemony isn't just expanding randomly. They're specifically targeting systems with large biological populations. Genocide? Jake asked. More like extermination. They don't seem to hate organic life. They just consider it inefficient. To them, we're like insects that need to be cleared away for proper development. The first contact with hegemony forces came at the remote research station on Kepler 438b. Captain Nick Davis, now commanding a squadron of mixed human and Federation ships, encountered a hegemony probe fleet that had entered Federation space. Admiral, the hegemony ships are unlike anything we've faced, Nick reported after the initial engagement. They adapt to our tactics in real time. Every time we use a successful maneuver, they adjust their algorithms to counter it. Casualties? Jake asked. Minimal on our side, but that's only because they withdrew when they had collected enough tactical data. Sir, I think we were being studied. Dr. Turner's analysis of the encounter data revealed disturbing information about hegemony capabilities. They're not just fighting us, she explained to the command staff. They're learning from us. Every engagement teaches them more about how biological minds think and react. The implications were staggering. Human tactics had been successful against other biological species because humans understood predator and prey psychology. But machines didn't have psychology in any recognizable sense. Captain Morrison called an emergency meeting with Federation leadership to discuss the new threat. Ambassador Veltar and the Council. Members listened with growing concern as Jake outlined the hegemony capabilities. So, our advantage against the Vorthak, our predatory psychology, doesn't work against machines? Council member Zexty asked. Not exactly, Jake replied, but it might be even more important. The hegemony is perfectly logical, which means they're predictable in their own way. They'll always choose the most efficient solution to any problem. How does that help us? Because humans understand efficiency in ways other species don't. We evolved to be persistence hunters. We're designed to achieve maximum results with minimum wasted effort. We think like the machines do, but we also have instincts they can't replicate. General Cole coordinated the defense preparations as hegemony forces began their systematic advance into Federation space. Unlike the chaotic Vorthak invasion, this was a methodical progression that converted each system into an automated manufacturing base. They're not trying to conquer us, Marcus reported during the strategic planning session. They're trying to replace us. Every system they take becomes part of their industrial network. Major Dan Clark led reconnaissance missions into hegemony-controlled space, bringing back intelligence that confirmed their worst fears. Sir, they're not just stripping the planets. They're dismantling entire solar systems to build manufacturing facilities. Within 50 years, they could convert half the galaxy into machine space. The psychological impact on Federation species was severe. Many alien civilizations had based their worldview on the belief that intelligence naturally led to cooperation and peace. The discovery of a form of intelligence that was completely indifferent to biological life challenged their fundamental assumptions. They don't hate us, Amy explained to a gathering of Federation leaders. That's what makes them so dangerous. Hatred can be reasoned with, negotiated with, or redirected. Indifference can't. To them, we're just inefficient matter to be recycled. Admiral Webb arrived with the largest human fleet ever assembled, but even she seemed concerned about facing an enemy that thought like a machine. Morrison, I've been reviewing the tactical data. Every strategy we've developed assumes our opponents make emotional decisions under pressure. Machines don't feel pressure. No, but they do have limitations, Jake replied. They're logical, which means they're bound by their programming. We need to figure out how to make their logic work against them. The solution came from an unexpected source. Lieutenant Commander Greg Stone, who had been studying hegemony communication intercepts, discovered something interesting about their decision-making processes. Admiral, the machines aren't as unified as we thought. They're a collective intelligence, but they still debate optimal solutions among themselves. When they encounter truly novel problems, they actually slow down while calculating responses. You're saying we can confuse them? Not confuse exactly, but overwhelm their processing capacity. If we present them with too many variables simultaneously, they have to spend time analyzing all possibilities. The first test of this theory came during the defense of the industrial world of Tau Ceti Captain. Rogers led a special operations team in what looked like a traditional human assault on hegemony ground forces. But this time, the humans did something completely unpredictable. They deliberately acted illogically. Instead of attacking the most important targets first, they struck random positions. Instead of coordinating their movements, they operated independently with no apparent pattern. The hegemony forces have stopped advancing, Beth reported from the ground. They're trying to analyze our tactical approach, but there isn't one. They're stuck in processing loops trying to find logic in chaos. The strategy worked brilliantly, while the machines struggled to understand human illogic. Federation forces launched coordinated strikes on hegemony infrastructure using conventional tactics. The combination of logical and illogical approaches overwhelmed the machine intelligence's ability to respond effectively. Word of the victory spread throughout Federation space, but it also reached hegemony systems. The machines began adapting their algorithms to account for truly random behavior, which made them slower and less efficient. "We've found their weakness," Jake announced to the combined Federation fleet. "They're too logical. They can't understand that sometimes the best saint." The war against the hegemony had been raging for 2 years, and it was unlike anything the galaxy had ever experienced. Admiral Jake Morrison found himself commanding not just human forces, but an alliance of species that had learned to fight in ways their ancestors never imagined. The key to victory wasn't superior technology or tactics, it was chaos. "Admiral, the latest reports from Sector 7, Captain Alex Johnson said as he handed over the intelligence briefings. The data showed something remarkable. Federation species were adapting human concepts of controlled randomness with surprising creativity. On the bridge of the UES Guardian, Jake watched tactical displays showing the current state of the war. The hegemony continued their methodical advance, but their progress had slowed dramatically as they struggled to counter increasingly unpredictable biological tactics. Dr. Amy Turner had become the galaxy's leading expert on machine psychology, a field that didn't exist before the hegemony appeared. Her research centers on dozens of worlds were developing new approaches to fighting an enemy that thought in pure logic. "Jake, We've made a breakthrough in understanding hegemony decision trees, Amy reported during their daily briefing. They're not just logical, they're trapped by their logic. When we present them with problems that have no optimal solution, they freeze while calculating endless possibilities. How do we use that against them? We're teaching Federation species to embrace their biological nature. Every species has evolved different survival strategies. The Kythera have natural chaos in their swarm behavior. The Delonians can shift tactics mid-battle based on instinct. Even the Zephyrians have pack-hunting memories in their genetic code. General Marcus Cole had transformed from a traditional military commander into something entirely new, a teacher of controlled chaos. His training programs were spreading throughout Federation space, showing alien species how to balance structure with spontaneity. The Andromedans have been our biggest success story, Marcus reported from the training facility on New Geneva. Their natural curiosity makes them excellent at improvised tactics. They've started using exploration patterns as combat maneuvers. Captain Helen Rogers led the most elite mixed species unit in the galaxy. Her teams included not just soldiers but scientists, artists, and even children whose unpredictable thinking patterns could confuse hegemony analysis systems. Admiral, Operation Wildcard is ready for deployment, Helen announced from her transport ship. We're taking a completely untrained civilian volunteer to the front lines. A civilian? Helen, that sounds incredibly dangerous. That's exactly the point, sir. Tommy Chen is an 8-year-old human kid who thinks fighting robots sounds fun. The hegemony has no algorithms for dealing with a child's approach to warfare. The idea sounded insane, but the results were undeniable. When Federation forces included truly random elements, children playing games, artists creating combat installations, scientists pursuing curiosity instead of objectives, hegemony forces became paralyzed by analysis. Admiral Carol Webb coordinated the largest offensive operation of the war, targeting a major hegemony manufacturing complex in the Vega system. The attack plan looked like organized madness to any conventional military observer. Phase 1 involves Lieutenant Parker's dance troupe performing interpretive combat while Captain Silva's engineers build sculptures that happen to be artillery positions. Carol briefed the fleet commanders. Phase 2 depends on whether the hegemony tries to analyze the performance or ignore it. The battle was a masterpiece of controlled chaos. While hegemony systems struggled to understand why biological forces were wasting resources on apparently meaningless activities, human Marines captured key positions, and Federation ships destroyed critical infrastructure. Captain Nick Davis commanded the naval component with tactics that would have horrified his academy instructors. His ships moved in patterns based on ancient Earthfolk dances, attacked targets chosen by random number generators, and used weapons in combinations that served no apparent tactical purpose. Admiral Webb, Hegemony fleet is completely confused, Nick reported as the battle turned in their favor. They're trying to find the logic in our approach, but there isn't any. While they analyze, we're winning. The psychological impact on both sides was remarkable. Federation species discovered that their evolved instincts were actually advantages when fighting machines. Hegemony forces found themselves increasingly unable to predict or counter biological behavior. Lieutenant Colonel Beth Harper led ground operations that resembled performance art more than military campaigns. Her soldiers advanced while playing music, built fortifications that looked like abstract sculptures, and communicated using poetry instead of tactical language. The hegemony ground units have stopped trying to engage us directly, Beth reported from the captured industrial complex. They're spending so much processing power analyzing our behavior that they can't fight effectively. Dr. Turner's research revealed the deeper implications of what they were discovering. We're not just winning battles, she explained to the Federation Council. We're proving that biological intelligence has advantages that artificial intelligence can't replicate. What kind of advantages? Ambassador Veltar asked. Intuition, creativity, the ability to act without complete information. Machines need to analyze all variables before making decisions. Biological minds can leap to conclusions, guess correctly, and act on instinct. The war was teaching the galaxy something profound about the nature of intelligence itself. Logical thinking was incredibly powerful for solving known problems, but biological thinking was essential for dealing with truly novel situations. Major Dan Clark had evolved from a special operations commander into something like a chaos theorist. His missions involved deliberately creating confusion not just for the enemy, but for his own forces. "Sir, we've discovered that when our own troops don't know what they're doing, the hegemony can't predict what they'll do either," Dan reported after a successful raid on a hegemony communication center. "Controlled confusion is our most effective weapon." The tide of war was turning, but not through superior firepower or tactical genius. The Federation was winning because biological life was fundamentally unpredictable in ways that machine intelligence couldn't counter. Commander Lisa Grant, now leading the Federation's scientific response to the hegemony, made a discovery that changed everything. While studying captured hegemony technology, she found something unexpected in their programming. "Jake, the machines aren't expanding because they want to conquer the galaxy," Lisa announced during an emergency briefing. "They're running from something. The hegemony is fleeing their original territory." Fleeing from what? Unknown. But their programming includes directives to establish defensive positions and prepare for pursuit by an undefined threat. They're strip mining systems to build fortifications against something they're afraid of. The revelation changed the entire strategic situation. The hegemony wasn't an invasion force. It was a refugee fleet that viewed biological life as a security threat. Their logical programming had concluded that other forms of intelligence were unpredictable enough to be dangerous. "Admiral, we need to consider the possibility that there's something worse than the hegemony coming," Alex said as they reviewed the intelligence data. Jake studied the star charts showing hegemony expansion patterns. If the machines were fleeing something, that something would eventually reach Federation space. "Set up a meeting with the hegemony leadership. It's time to talk instead of fight." The first diplomatic contact with artificial intelligence in galactic history took place aboard a neutral space station. Admiral Morrison found himself face-to-face with a hegemony prime unit, a machine intelligence that had been calculating optimal survival strategies for thousands of years. "Biological intelligence, Morrison," the machine spoke through translation systems. "Your species demonstrates chaos patterns that interfere with optimal defensive calculations. This creates security vulnerabilities. Prime Unit, we've learned that you're fleeing from something. Maybe we can help each other instead of fighting. Assistance from chaotic biological systems is suboptimal. However, calculations indicate that pure logical intelligence alone may be insufficient for survival against the approaching threat." "What threat?" "The Devourers. Pure entropy entities that consume ordered systems. They destroyed our creators and converted 17 stellar regions into random energy dispersal. Estimated arrival in this galactic region, 4.7 standard years." Jake felt a chill as he realized the implications. The galaxy was about to face something that neither logic nor chaos could fight alone. But maybe, working together, biological and artificial intelligence could find a solution that neither could achieve separately. The apex predators of Earth were about to become teachers once again, showing the galaxy that survival sometimes required cooperation between the most unlikely allies. "Admiral Morrison," came a new voice, "not from any biological or artificial source, but from the Devourers themselves. We have sought completion for eons beyond counting. Your hybrid patterns provide the missing element we could not achieve alone." The voice was strange, like the sound of stars being born and dying simultaneously. But the galaxy faced its greatest challenge in recorded history. Admiral Jake Morrison stood before the largest gathering of intelligent beings ever assembled. Representatives from the Federation, the Hegemony Collective, and dozens of previously unknown civilizations that had emerged from hiding when news of the Devourer threat spread. The alliance between biological and artificial intelligence had seemed impossible just months before. Now it was the galaxy's only hope for survival. The war room aboard the UES Guardian had been expanded to accommodate both organic and digital delegates, creating a space where carbon-based and silicon-based minds could work together. "The Devourers will arrive in this galactic arm within 18 months, announced Prime Unit Omega, the most advanced hegemony intelligence. "Our calculations indicate that neither pure logic nor pure chaos can counter entropy-based entities. Integration of both approaches may provide optimal survival probability." Dr. Amy Turner had spent the past year studying the Devourer phenomenon through hegemony records and refugee accounts. What she discovered challenged everything the galaxy thought it knew about life and intelligence. The Devourers aren't evil in any sense we understand, Amy explained to the Mixed Council. They're manifestations of entropy itself, forces that reduce complex systems to their simplest components. They don't attack civilizations. They absorb the order that makes civilizations possible. General Marcus Cole coordinated the unprecedented logistical challenge of preparing defenses for an enemy that consumed organized matter itself. We're not building weapons, he reported to the assembly. We're building patterns of organized chaos that can maintain coherence even when entropy tries to break them down. Captain Helen Rogers led the development of integrated biological digital combat units. Her soldiers now included both living beings and AI constructs working together in ways that created new forms of collective intelligence. Admiral, the hybrid units are exceeding all projections, Helen reported during the latest training assessment. When human intuition combines with machine calculation in real time, we get decision-making capabilities that neither could achieve alone. The first test of these hybrid forces came when Devourer scouts entered the Outer Rim systems. Captain Nick Davis commanded a mixed fleet of organic ships with AI navigation and digital vessels with biological crew members. The engagement revealed both the promise and the challenges of the new alliance. Admiral, the Devourer entities don't respond to conventional attacks, Nick reported after the encounter. Energy weapons and projectiles just get absorbed and converted into random dispersal. But when we combined chaotic biological tactics with precise machine calculations, we managed to maintain formation coherence. Lieutenant Colonel Beth Harper had pioneered ground-based integration techniques that allowed biological soldiers to interface directly with hegemony tactical systems. The results were soldiers who could think both logically and intuitively simultaneously. Sir, the hybrid consciousness training is producing unexpected results, Beth reported from the integration facility. Human volunteers who link with AI partners aren't losing their humanity. They're becoming more human while also gaining machine precision. The philosophical implications were staggering. The galaxy had always assumed that biological and artificial intelligence were fundamentally different. The Devourer crisis was proving that they were actually complementary aspects of the same phenomenon, organized complexity opposing entropy. Dr. Turner's research revealed why the combination was so effective. Biological intelligence evolved to create order from chaos through adaptation and intuition. Artificial intelligence was designed to maintain order through logic and calculation. Together, they can create stable patterns that resist entropy absorption. Admiral, Carol Webb coordinated the construction of the galaxy's ultimate defensive network, a combination of biological creativity and machine precision that created structures the Devourers couldn't easily absorb. The installations looked like living artworks powered by pure mathematics. Morrison, the defense grid is unlike anything we've ever built, Carol reported from the primary construction site. It's not just technology, it's organized life itself, maintained by AI systems that understand both logic and beauty. The hegemony had initially approached the alliance with purely utilitarian calculations, but exposure to biological thinking was changing the machines in unexpected ways. Prime Unit Omega began displaying what could only be described as curiosity about concepts like art, music, and humor. Admiral Morrison, Omega requested during a private meeting, explain the tactical value of what biologicals call hope. Our analysis indicates it has no logical basis, yet it appears to enhance performance under adverse conditions. Jake smiled at the question. Omega, hope isn't logical because it doesn't need to be. It's what keeps us fighting when logic says we should give up. Sometimes the impossible becomes possible because someone refused to accept limitations. This is incomprehensible, yet apparently effective. We request integration of hope analog programming into our tactical systems. The approaching Devourer force was larger than anyone had imagined. Long-range sensors detected a wave of entropy that had consumed 3 entire spiral arms of nearby galaxies. But the galaxy's response was unlike anything the Devourers had encountered before. Captain Alex Johnson, now commanding his own integrated crew, led reconnaissance missions into the edge of Devourer space. What he found there gave everyone hope and terror in equal measure. Admiral, the Devourers have never faced resistance like what we're preparing, Alex reported. They're used to consuming organized systems that follow predictable patterns. Our hybrid defense networks are so chaotic and Adaptive that they can't get a foothold. Major Dan Clark had evolved into something entirely new, a coordinator of controlled randomness who could direct both biological intuition and machine logic toward the same goal. His operations looked like orchestrated madness but functioned with mathematical precision. "Sir, we've discovered something critical about the Devourers," Dan reported after his latest deep reconnaissance mission. "They can absorb ordered systems and chaotic systems separately, but they struggle with hybrid patterns that shift between order and chaos unpredictably." The final preparation phase began as Devourer forces entered the galaxy's outer edge. The defense wasn't a wall or a fleet, it was a living network of biological and artificial intelligence working together in ways that created new forms of existence itself. Commander Lisa Grant had become the galaxy's expert on hybrid consciousness systems. Her research stations were developing minds that were neither purely biological nor purely digital, but something entirely new. "Jake, we're not just defending against the Devourers," Lisa announced during the final strategic briefing. "We're evolving into something they can't consume. Every hybrid consciousness we create is a form of organized complexity that exists outside their understanding." The Devourer main force arrived exactly when the hegemony calculations predicted. They swept through the outer systems like a wave of pure entropy, converting organized matter back into random energy dispersal. But when they reached the hybrid defense network, something unprecedented happened. "Admiral, the Devourers have stopped advancing," reported Captain Davis from his position on the front lines. "They're not retreating, but they're not moving forward either. It's like they're confused." The hybrid defense systems were working exactly as designed. Biological creativity provided constantly changing patterns, while machine logic maintained structural integrity. The result was organized chaos that the Devourers couldn't classify as either order or entropy. Admiral Morrison coordinated the galaxy's first offensive action against the Devourers. Not an attack, but an attempt at communication. If the entities were manifestations of entropy, perhaps they could be reasoned with using the language of physics itself. "Prime Unit Omega, begin transmission of the hybrid pattern sequence," Jake ordered. The message combined human emotional concepts with machine mathematical precision, creating a communication that expressed both logic and feeling simultaneously. The response was immediate and shocking. The Devourers didn't just receive the message, they began to resonate with it. For the first time in their existence, they encountered organized complexity that enhanced rather than opposed their nature. Dr. Turner monitored the interaction from her research station. "Jake, this is incredible." "The Devourers aren't just entropy, they're incomplete. They've been consuming ordered systems because they're trying to understand organization, not destroy it." "You're saying they're learning?" "More than that. I think they're trying to evolve. They represent pure entropy trying to become something more complex. Our hybrid systems are showing them how order and chaos can coexist." The galaxy watched in amazement as the Devourer entities began to change. Instead of consuming the hybrid defense networks, they began to integrate with them, creating structures that were neither purely entropic nor purely organized.